Hello, welcome to my channel once again. Today we are going to be looking at something very, very interesting. I know I say interesting very often, but this time around, believe me, it's really interesting. I make a lot of videos, but there are a few times that I'm really excited about the content I'm bringing out. And today is one of such days. We are doing something that cuts across cloud computing, cuts across ERPs, and touches on different aspects of IT in general. So let me go over, let me share my screen. Just give me a moment. Share my screen. Looking for a, yeah. Okay, so I believe you can see my screen now. Um, so basically we have Perfect CRM. This is the CRM that we want to deploy on Azure. So this is the CRM. It's open source, which makes it very handy and useful. Many people have heard of Bitrix 24. Bitrix is also kind of free, but it's not. I don't think Bitrix is open source. I know there's a free version, but I do not think it's open source. Let me go to English. Or Bitrix does not exist on Wikipedia in English. So let me take a look at this. This is in German. Yeah, so it doesn't exist on Wikipedia. So that's fine. It must have been deleted. I know I used to see it a while back. So basically we want to deploy this application on Azure. That's what we want to do. I do not want this video to be too long, so I would be dividing it into two parts. This is CRM, it can act as an ERP, and these are the features. It's quite useful and a lot that it can do for you. Okay, so one reason why I'm really excited about this video is the approach that we are going to be using. So we have a database, we have an application. My VM will be on Azure, but instead of having my database within my virtual machine, I'll be using the managed service database for this. And usually when I do this, I usually have my database, like when someone have the correct credentials, they will be able to authenticate. But this time around, we are even taking it a step further. We are not doing that. We want to create only a private access. So we want to kind of like have a virtual network, and we'll have a subnet for the VM, another subnet for the database, which is a more secure way of doing this. That's one of the reasons why I think this video is very, very useful, because I've done a couple of videos that involves database, connecting virtual machine servers to database, and in all of my previous videos, I always allow Azure services. I use a wildcard that Azure services would be able to interact with the database. But this time around, we want to use um, a subnet. So if I should come over here, let me show you the architecture. So this is basically what we are doing. We have a virtual network, and we'll have a subnet for the database, another subnet for the VM. So this is the approach that we are doing. So the previous approach that we used to do it's not architected here. But I think we get the point. So in this case, this is where peering comes into place, but we are not doing this. Is the first scenario that we are working with. Okay, so let's just get straight to it. The first thing I want us to do is let's go over to it's a MySQL database. So come over here, click on create a flexible server. Yeah, so just follow me and we'll all be good. Um, my resource group, and I need to give it a name. So let me call it, so let me just use Frankly CRM. I'm using South Africa as my region. Oh, I do not want redundancy, so I think this is good. Um, my admin username. So I need to take note of all these numbers that I'm using. So let me copy this, my server name. I would get a notepad and I would paste it over there. Server name, then admin username. So let me just call this frankly admin. Then for the password, let me copy this into my notepad. For the password, yeah, so I have a password. I'll be slotting in here. I hope it's accepted. Okay, it can't contain my bad, so I better use something better. Yeah, so I believe this should work as my password. Okay, so we are good with this. So let's go to the next page. So all this, we are just trying to create our database server. We are setting up our database server. So networking, this is the most important part that you need to be careful how you work with it. So now, usually in my previous videos, I will just leave it as public access, allowed IP address, and private endpoint. So anytime I specify that I add the IP address for my machine for a client, that machine will be able to connect to the database. So that's the approach that I've been using. And also I also specify that allow public access to this resource through the internet. Um, so yeah, allow public access from any Azure service within Azure. So I always check this so that any service within Azure will be able to access the server. So even if the IP address for that Azure service is not whitelisted, so I always click on this, but these are not best practice approach. So what we are doing here is we are going to use private access, which is how it should be. Which is how it should be. Yeah. So this is what makes this video very valuable. So we click on this private access VNet integration. Then what we are going to do now is would want to create our subnets. So what I will do is I would click on create virtual network. Yeah, I'll click on create virtual network. And let's see what we have. Okay. So we have this. I can see there's an overlap. So we want to prevent that. We do not want that. So what I'll be doing is I'll be changing that IP, the internal IP, to something that is more appropriate for our environment. So we'll be going with the 172 range. 172. Oh, okay, so now there's no overlap. And for our subnets, we want to give it the subnet for our database in name for our database server. So I can call this DB subnets. And this 172.23.24. Oh no, this should be /24. Yeah. Yeah, so these are subnets. So this address range is a subset of the address space. If you can use a subnet calculator to get all this. So we have this. I think we are good with our virtual network. Okay, so I think we are good. So this is our subnet, which is part of our address space. You know, from what we have here, we are creating the subnet for our database. So this is what we are creating now. So we are still going to we are still going to create the subnet for our VM. So we are good with this, trying to make sure there is no mistake anywhere. I can see the number of IP addresses that we have. And we are probably not going to need up to that. Yeah, so I hope I modify the resource group. Let me see. Okay, yes, I did. Okay, so this is good. Yeah, the other information, we can leave them. Private DNS zone. Yeah, so I think we are good. I think we are good. Yeah, so um this was the old one that I worked with. So this is for the new one. So we are good with this. So security, we do not need anything from here. So I think we can create. Hopefully, validation will be passed. Hopefully. Yeah. So this is just the first part. So let's see if this is gonna work out well. So it's validating now. So what we are doing is we are creating our database server. This is gonna take a while. So we are creating our database server, and when this is done, we are now going to work with our virtual machine. So for that, let me just click on virtual machine. While that is ongoing, source group, then the virtual machine name, let me call it, I have to enter it into my text so that I'll call VM name, let it be frankly VM. Availability option, I don't need redundancy. Trusted launch, I'm fine with standard. Um, yeah, so I think this is good. Me open ports 80 as well. Disk. Let me check. It is still loading. Yeah, on that disk, we do not have much to do here. I think this is fine. We're under networking. This is where we now need to specify that we want this to be in a subnet within the virtual network, because that's the only way this VM will have access to the database. So what I will do is, so our virtual network is correct. You can see it's correct. Our subnet, we need to change the subnets. You can see we have the DB subnet here. Here we are in a virtual machine. So we do not want the virtual machine to be in the same subnet as the database. So we need to create another subnet. So I'll click on manage subnet configurations. Then I would click to add a new subnet. Trying to look at my the database provisioning. Okay, so let's call this, since we have DB subnet, let's call this VM subnet. Yeah, so I think um this makes sense. This is the address space, the IP range for both, for the entire all what we have, our entire virtual network. And this is the starting address for our VM subnet, which makes sense. You can see it's 172.23.1.0, while for the DB is 00. So it does makes a lot of sense. So I think we can work with this. Any other thing to be modified? I think this is good. We are not delegating here. Um, so I think we can add this. Let me just go up a little bit again. I think this is fine. Let's add. So we are creating the subnet now. Yeah, you can see that the DB subnet is dedicated to Microsoft, and that's because it's a managed service. Yeah, so after creating our subnet, we can just close this. Can close this. So it's VM that we have to select here. Yeah. So I think we are good. I think we are good. Yeah. So this is a very light VM. It's really, really light. Hopefully, I think we are good. Let me just call it. It's taking a lot of time. Okay, so we are creating our virtual machine now, and we are creating it in a private subnet. We are creating it in a subnet, and within the virtual network, we also have our database subnets. So let me create it now. Let me download my private key. Okay, so my private key, let me move it to, this video is getting too long. Ah, so our VM is ready. Our VM is ready, but our database is still in progress. Our database is still in progress. So what I'll do now is that we can leave this while this is still working. Let's just continue with our database, with our virtual machine. So what we basically need to do is, this video is about Perfex CRM. We'll need to SSH into our virtual machine and would do the necessary configuration before we connect to our database. So I'll be opening my bash, my terminal. Okay. So I'll stop sharing. Then I'll share my terminal. Okay, so on to SSH now. I'll just be copying and pasting. So I want to SSH into the server now. Paste my IP address is 4.221.199.107. And my PEM file, it is, let me look for it. Okay, it's frankly VM. Yeah, that's my PEM file. So I can SSH now. Yes. Yeah, so we are in now. Who am I? Azure user. Yeah, we are in. So Perfect CRM works with PHP. So the first thing we need to do is to install PHP and all the dependencies, and you also need a web server, obviously. So you can either use Apache or Nginx, but for this demo, I'll be using Apache, or you can even use both of them. So before I even do that, so I should sudo apt update. So I should update the server. Yeah, so now I want to install all the PHP dependencies. It's just a couple of stuff that you need to install. So if you go online, you would find all this on the internet in terms of what you need to install to set up PHP. So you can see PHP, PHP CLI, PHP FPM, and all the dependencies. Some of these dependencies are part of the requirement for Perfect CRM. So it's important that um you install all of them. I remember IMAP is also one, and I don't think we have IMAP um listed here. Yes. So I'm installing PHP and all its dependencies. What people normally use to work with PHP. That's what I'm installing now. Okay, so while this is still ongoing, we're installing PHP and its dependencies. Okay, I think that should be done. Yeah, so now what we want to do is um we want to create a new directory, make directory, call it apps, um call it apps. So this is where we are going to move our zip file. That's the Perfect CRM source code. We'll be moving it from my local computer to Azure, and we use the SCP command for that. So what I'll do is I would launch another terminal window and I will use it to move it. And the reason I'm doing that is that I do not want to terminate this session. So I'll just stop sharing this and open another terminal. Yeah, so let me share second terminal. Okay, so we're using the SCP command, and I want to copy my code to the zip file. So let me just confirm. So my PEM file is frankly something. Then yeah, this is the file I want to move. So this is the Perfect CRM file. Azure user is my username, but my IP is not correct. So let me update the IP. Or 221.199 and 107. Yeah, Azure user apps. Apps is the folder that I created. Then Perfex CRM. So we can move this. We just want to copy it over there. So this is the file. We'll copy it to that folder. So I think this is fine. Yeah, so it's being copied now. It's about 50, it's about 50 MB. So okay, so while that is ongoing, so what we are doing is we are moving our code. We are using the SCP tool to move our code from my local computer to um to um to my Azure virtual machine. Yeah, so it's done. It's done. So let me stop sharing and let me return to my main VM. My VM, um, sorry. Okay. Yeah, so if I should cd into apps that was created and I use ls, I can see it in there. So one thing I want to, because it's a zip file, we might have we might need to install unzip so that we can use it to unzip it, that file, unzip. Yeah, so that is done. So we now need to move that our zip file to the www directory. That's the directory that Apache uses where we need to put our codes. So let me just get the command. Um, so we are moving it. We are using the mv command. Let me just copy it instead of wasting time. Where do I have this command? Mv. Okay, I've seen it. Yeah. So let me just paste it. So the var www.html directories, um, that's where we put our web pages that we want the web server to have access to. So I'll just, this is the zip file. We are moving the zip file. So I will then go there and I will now unzip it. So we are moving it and it's been done. If I should use ls now, we wouldn't see anything here. So now let me go to var www html. If I should ls, I can see it over there. So what I want to do now is I want to unzip. So I will do sudo unzip Perfex. So we are unzipping it now. Yeah, so we've unzipped. If I should use ls, I can see the unzipped version. Yeah, so we are good. I really need to round up this video. It's taking too long. So now let's set up our configuration file. So for our configuration file, there's a folder we are going to be using. So I'll just navigate to our sites available. When you see the etc Apache sites available, yeah. So what we want to do is, if we should ls, we can see that there's the default configuration file already there. But we want to create our own. So what we'll do is we'll copy what we have in the default file into our own. So we'll use sudo copy 000. Then we call ours Perfect CRM. You can give it anything, but just ensure it's .conf to denote that it's a configuration file. So I think that's fine. So that will copy it and create our own. It will create our configuration file that has exactly the same content as the default one. So we now want to modify our own. So we use sudo nano. I want to modify. So we scroll down. So we can change this. What email do I use? Let me use just a random email. Then our document root is where our application is. So I wouldn't be using HTML. So it's inside the HTML because there are multiple, there can be multiple web pages, web projects within HTML. So I'll call this Perfex CRM. I'm not even sure of the name of the folder. Let me confirm. I think there's underscore. I think there's underscore. There's an underscore. Perfect underscore. Yeah, I think there's an underscore. Then we can also create, then we should also specify the IP address and we'll call it server name. So this is the IP address for our VM that we'll be using to access this application. So it's 4.221 dot 199.107. Okay, so I think we are good. I can save this. Yes. Yeah. So the next thing we need to do is we need to enable this configuration file, which will automatically create a corresponding file in sites enabled. And to do that, we use this command. We use E2 and sites. So you use sudo our configuration file. Yeah, so this is what we'll create. We enable it. Yeah, so we'll be restarting our web server very soon. We'll be restarting Apache very soon. But before that, before we do that, let me just do a little modification. So by default, our IMAP is not enabled. Our PHP IMAP is not enabled, and it is one of the requirements. I'll also show you the page, but because of our time, let me just fix all the issues so that we wouldn't be coming back. So what we'll do is, let me cd into, so we want to modify the php.ini file to enable the IMAP extension. So etc php 8.3 Apache. Then now we can sudo nano php.ini. Yeah. So we just need to control F. Where is control W rather? Control W, and I write IMAP. I type IMAP. Yeah, I can see it. So I'll just remove the semicolon and I save this. Yes. Yeah. So we are good. We are good. So now I think I can restart Apache. So sudo systemctl reload Apache 2. Yeah. Yeah. So we've restarted Apache. So with this now we can try to access our application. I think everything is fine. I actually think everything is fine. Hopefully everything will work well. So let me go back to um my browser. Yeah, so let me just copy this, try to access it. Yeah, so it's working as expected. Oh, I haven't we are gonna get a little error for folder permissions. So all this is working well. So let me just use this opportunity to speak around this. So you can see the IMAP PHP extension that I enabled. If I didn't, it would flag an issue here. So for our folder permission, presently we might face some issues. So to prevent that, let me go back to my VM, to my terminal. So what I will do is, let me go to var www html. Yeah, so I'll use sudo chmod 777. Yeah, so I think this would make the folders writable. So we need to also use capital R to make it recursive. Yeah, so I think this makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think this makes sense. Okay, so with this, the folders will be writable as expected. Yeah, so you can see it's okay. Everything is okay. I didn't want to, because of our time, I didn't want to be going um to it individually, like be selecting the folders because of our time. I just did the wildcard um change of permissions. So let's set up our database. The moment we can connect, the database is checked and everything works well, we'll be ending this part of the video. So for the host name, what you need to do is come over to your database. So it's finally completed. Come over to your database. You copy the server name, which I just copied. You paste it here. You can also specify the port for MySQL 306. I just remember that I did not open the port for in my VM. So let's quickly go and do that. So in my virtual machine, I go to network settings. Create a port for inbound. Service MySQL. Yeah, the service MySQL. Then I allow. Yeah, then because I didn't set up SSL, so I will also go and allow HTTP. So I'll go to my database under server parameters. I'll go to under requires secure transport. I'll switch it off because I'm not using SSL, and I'll save. Yeah, so this is ongoing. It's been saved. Yeah, this shouldn't take time like the other one. So what I will do is under database name, I'm even here to create the database name. So I would use let me just enter the password. So the same password that we used with the username, with the admin username for the database is what we are still using here. So for the username, admin username, I will enter that. For the database name, yeah, so it's completed. So let me just create a database quickly. So I'll click on database from what we have here. Add a new database. Let me call this frankly data. Frankly IoT. So I'll copy this. So you do not need to change this. The default is fine. I just want you to see what we have here. Okay, so I'll save and copy the database name. Now save this. So the moment we have a connection, a good connection, we just end this part of the video. So in the second part, we'll see how we can um, set up our Perfex CRM. Yeah, so I think database is listed here, FranklyDB. So let me go over here, slot it in. So we have our host name, which is from our flexible SQL, MySQL server. We have the database name, which I just created. Then we have the username. We are using the admin username that we created when we were provisioning our database server, and the password as well for the admin. So let's see if we can have a successful database connection. So if you should come over here, if I come to networking in our server, you see that this subnet is delegated for use only with MySQL flexible server. And you can see the virtual network around it. So this is very much secure compared to when it's just working on its own. So if I come to configure networking from allow access, mm, still come back here where, and you can't modify this because it has been set that it's in a subnet and it's only accessible via the virtual network. So let me try to connect, check database, and it was successful. It was successful. So I believe with this now, so you can fill in, so this is your application. You can just enter any kind of data and you'll be good. So I believe that we've been able to see how we can connect, how we can install this and how we can connect our database to our virtual machine. And one thing I want you to take note of is this architecture that we have here, because we can see that our DB is in a subnet, our VM is in another subnet. Yeah, and I really love this link. You can see other modes that can be used. Other modes, you can try all this out. Yeah. So in the next video, we are going to continue. For now, let's just call it a day. Yeah, I think I wasn't sharing my screen. Wow. When after changing, um, after I changed I wasn't sharing my screen. So I probably have to do this again. So let me stop sharing. I was still sharing um, I was still sharing my, okay. So this was what I was showing us, that we have this, the architecture that we use. There are different modes. This is the architecture that we are interested in. So then I also got, I came over here, this was where I created the database. This is the database that was created. Then I came over to server parameters to switch off SSL. So I came to second page. It was require secure transport was on. I switched it off. Then from the VM, I came over here and added an inbound port rule for ports 3306. I came over here, inbound port rule, after clicking on networking. So for our perfects, what I did was I I entered um the IP address. So this IP address, I got it from the VM, from the virtual machine. I copied it from here, the virtual machine. Then I click on here. Let me just confirm. Yeah, and we can see that all the requirements are enabled. Then we go to folder permissions, and we can see that our permissions is also intact. So I was saying that I didn't want to um, treat upload folder differently and the like. So I just gave everything right permissions, all the subfolders in our project folder. Then I went to set up database. Then I entered the host name. I got the host name from here. I copied the host name from here. I included the ports. Then for the database name, I said the database name was frankly Frank IODB. Then the username, let me just get the username and the password. Then the password is the password. So with this, we got a successful connection, which we got. Yeah, so that was basically what I did. Yeah, so in the next video, we'll look at the functional aspect of this bit. We've been able to establish a successful database to VM connection, which is really the most important part of what we are really doing. We've spent a lot of time, so let's just end it here. Have a nice day. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.